Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us this afternoon for our virtual open house event with the Department of Medical Engineering here at the University of South Florida. My name is Clara Ohanis. I am the Department Administrator for Medical Engineering. Just a few housekeeping tips to share for a better experience for those of you who are tuning in. So please keep in mind the following. All of you in the audience are muted by default. Please use the live event Q&A box to ask any questions. Feel free to post questions anytime throughout the presentation. I will try to monitor those. We will be sure, though, to address questions at the end of the presentation. You can also turn on live closed captioning by selecting the caption/subtitles on in your video controls. And if you have any technical difficulties, please reach out to our IT department at help@usf.edu or that 813-974-HELP phone number. And this session is being recorded, so recordings will be available next week on the USF College of Engineering website for your review. Okay. Our agenda for the day. So we will have a brief introduction to our department. You will hear from our department chair, Dr. Robert Frisina. You will get to learn a little bit about the BME research specializations that we have in the department. We will go through some faculty introductions, so you'll get a chance to hear from some of our faculty. We will talk then a little bit about extracurriculars and research and internship opportunities for students. Then you'll hear more about specifically the graduate programs and the curriculum. We'll talk a little bit about some Tampa Bay highlights because we are in sunny Tampa, Florida. And we'll talk to you about how you can get connected to us through different social media and then next steps following our presentation. Oops. There we go. So I would like to now introduce our department chair, Dr. Robert Frisina, who is going to say hello and tell you a little bit about our department.
Hello, everyone. Welcome and thanks for coming to our BME breakout session. And at University of South Florida, we administer our BME or biomedical engineering grad programs through our Department of Medical Engineering, and we call it medical engineering to signify a close relation between the College of Engineering and the College of Medicine and USF Health and our main hospital in this region, which is called Tampa General Hospital, which is now the hospital affiliated with USF Health. So we have close relations, and we try to set up projects and teams and collaborations and Ph.D. and master's thesis projects between engineering faculty, our BME graduate students, and medical school faculty, clinicians, and researchers. So that's why we call ourselves medical engineering, but we do administer the biomedical engineering graduate programs. Our graduate programs have been around a while. They're well established, and we currently have about 80 to 85 full-time graduate students. So we have good programs that have been developed over the years and have successful graduates over that time period. Okay, so let's go to, well, I will say that one of our noteworthy aspects of our programs are we have brand new student labs, and our faculty for the most part, have brand new or newly renovated, remodeled labs. So our research, we're lucky to have these great facilities to carry out our research that our graduate students perform with us. Okay, let's go to the next slide. All right, so we have some noteworthy areas of research and coursework that goes along with that research. So I just want to give you a brief introduction to 4 areas that we focus on, so that if you're interested in one of these areas, we can definitely provide more information and ultimately provide a great graduate education for you. So let me just quickly introduce. I don't have time to go into a lot of detail, but I will give you a flavor for each of our 4 main areas. So the first one we call biomedical imaging and bioelectronics. So in many of these areas, we do have some worldwide leaders doing research here at USF, and sometimes they have primary appointments in medical engineering. In other cases, we have faculty across engineering, across the med school, the pharmacy school, and Moffitt Cancer Center, which is one of the top 10 cancer centers in the United States. So we have faculty at those places that can also supervise our grad students. So in terms of imaging, one example is we have a program where one of our professors does thermoacoustic and photoacoustic tomography at the micro level, so tiny probes going into the body. The buzzword now is theranostics, where you can perform therapy and diagnostics with these microimaging systems. Then we do have whole body imaging research programs, particularly in orthopedics, MRI, PET. And then in terms of bioelectronics, what we mean here is studying electrical properties of cells, communications between cells, and electronic control of physiological systems. We have one of our faculty who develops new biomaterials for these types of recording and stimulation systems, for example, with a new compound that has very interesting properties called silicon carbide. Next slide. Our next, go back to cell and tissue. So cell and tissue engineering, this includes regenerative medicine, stem cell research, tissue regeneration, replacement, and transplantation. We have several faculty and labs working in these areas, and they include synthesis and integration of inorganic and organic films and nanofibers and nanoparticles, also developing new biomaterials for mechanobiology. Next slide. Our next specialization area where we have expertise, research, and some coursework at the graduate level would be molecular medicine and drug delivery. And molecular medicine is, studying body systems, physiological systems at cellular and molecular levels, and developing new means of diagnosing and treating disorders at the molecular and cellular level using gene and genetic, gene expression, and proteomic techniques. We actually have one of the world's leading teams in electroporative drug delivery as part of our BME faculty here, and they use that to deliver new drugs and gene therapy. In the neuroengineering area, which is another one of our areas of expertise, we have NIH-funded programs on microsensors and micropumps for drug delivery to different areas of the body. Next slide. And our 4th area of emphasis we call neural and rehabilitation engineering. So we have a cluster of neuroengineering faculty some of whom do high-level computational modeling of neural and brain networks. And we have representation in sensory systems with an emphasis on vision, hearing, deafness. We have elements of aging. And then in terms of rehabilitation engineering, we have a very active program in collaboration with the mechanical engineering department and in collaboration with one of the 2 largest VA hospitals, which is located right across the street from the University of South Florida here in Northeast Tampa. And they have several labs on campus. They're very active in development and testing of replacement limbs, so arms and legs. We also have active rehabilitation neural program with Florida Orthopedic, which is one of the top orthopedic practices in this region, and that includes joint and limb modeling, and that's also in collaboration with Tampa General that I mentioned before, which is the top medical center in this Tampa Bay region. Okay, next slide. So we just want to introduce our primary faculty in the medical engineering department, and I think most of them are here. So let's go to the next slide. So I'll begin, and I won't go into much of the teaching. You can look at that on the website, but my areas of research cover several of our different specialization areas. In my neuroengineering lab, we look at sensory systems, particularly regarding hearing loss and deafness. We do animal model research, and we look at how the system works, how sensory systems work, what goes wrong in cases of hearing loss and deafness, in my case. And we develop new interventions, advances in technology, and drug development. We also have an NIH-funded project where we develop micro pumps for inner ear drug delivery. This would be to deliver drugs in sustained, controlled ways over time to either prevent or treat hearing loss and deafness. We also have a departmental level brand new 3D bioprinter. This would come under tissue engineering, tissue regeneration. So we can actually do research now. In my case, we do it in terms of growing and printing cells for inner ear targeted at treating hearing loss and deafness. And okay, and we'll go to our next faculty member now, Dr. Zekri. Is Dr. Zekri around?
Hello, I am around.
Okay, we can hear you.
All right, thank you. So hi, everybody. My name is Suhail Zekri. I'm one of the instructors, teaching instructors at the medical engineering department. I focus on a certain number of courses. So students come to me at the undergraduate level, and I teach undergraduate predominantly. I don't teach graduate courses. Go through computer programming, ethics, and I'm the director of the capstone projects or capstone design courses. My areas of interest, research interest, these days focus predominantly on engineering education. And thank you for your attention.
Okay, I don't think Dr. Akintui is here. I believe she's teaching right now.
She's still in the lab, yes.
So I will introduce you to her. She predominantly does undergrad teaching, but she's a real innovator in engineering education and does research in that area. And she also does tissue engineering, 3D bioprinting, and helps out with those projects with our undergrad and grad students. Okay, next slide. Okay, Dr. Spiru, you're up.
Hi, everyone. I'm George Spiru, and I'm a neuroscientist. So I'm falling under the neuroscience element of the department emphasis. So in my lab, we have really two main areas of research. One is something that we call really brain mapping, or the official term is mapping the connections or the connectome of parts of the brain at very high resolution at the synaptic level. And we use volume imaging and generate, it's really a big data problem. And then we apply neural network analysis for segmentation, and I collaborate with folks in mathematics and graph theory and in computer vision to extract the neurons from these volume data sets, and then we map the way that they're connected with each other. So why are we doing this? It's a lot of data. A single image volume might be 40 terabytes. Well, we're doing this to understand how the nervous system is really connected at a very detailed level. And in the process, we're finding new kinds of neurons. We're discovering new computing principles for neural circuits. We're looking, as Dr. Persina is, in parts of the brain that have to do with hearing. And so we can get at some very fundamental questions in neuroscience, and I'll just give you one. And that is that we know that our human brains can solve a lot of problems and situations more quickly than a computer, and that's because we perform so-called parallel processing. And so what are these parallel networks? How are they structured? And these are the kinds of answers that we're extracting from these image volumes. So in the big picture also, this is a way to then design biologically inspired artificial intelligence. Let's look at what the human brain has worked up over years of evolution. And then by turning these image volumes and this information into a computational framework, then we can experiment on the system and really try to dig deep and understand its principles. The other angle of research in the lab is neural development. Also, we're looking in the auditory system, and conveniently there is the largest nerve terminal in the mammalian brain. So we have the advantage of being able to see it under the microscope, study it with structural imaging, light and electron microscopy, looking at the evolving or the developing physiology in the system, and viewing that developing neural circuit as really a whole tissue kind of transformation. The connections form, so that's a transformation, but the glial cells are also participating. And so there are many elements to that problem, and we're trying to go after this in a very holistic way with imaging, electrophysiology, and structural biology. And so in our lab, we have, you'll run into computer scientists and mathematicians through our collaborations, and it's a way to apply engineering principles to these problems in understanding the nervous system. And I'll just add, we're a good home for undergrads. And so if you want to be a graduate student who gets to manage and boss around a small team of undergraduates, then look us up in the after session here, and we'll tell you more about the lab. So I'll pass it back to Bob.
Very good. And next up, we have Dr. Pasaglia.
Dr. Pasaglia, turn your mic on.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. I teach a couple courses at the undergraduate level. You should be able to see currently posted on the slide. The research interests in my lab are directed at pretty much all things related to vision. Most of our work is in the peripheral system in our eyes, but we do some work in the central visual system in the brain. Our lab employs a variety of animal models. The model choice currently is the rat, and we use different experimental approaches ranging from computational modeling to electrophysiology. Those are sort of the bread and butter of the lab. We also do a lot of bioinstrumentation, as well as some behavioral work and some histology. The lab uses these techniques to try to gain a better understanding of how we and other animals see from a more basic research perspective, as well as to apply and engineer solutions to various visual disorders, most specific of which is the disease of glaucoma, which targets the cells that we do a lot of our basic research studies on. My lab has 2 new R1 grants, which we're looking for students next year to help us out in these projects. One of these grants is looking at designing or developing pharmaceuticals that can promote optic nerve regeneration after a crush or cut. And the other project is looking at, it uses devices that we've developed in the lab to monitor and control pressure in the eye and look at that effects on disease development in the eye. Thank you.
Very good. I don't think Dr. Zhang was able to make it today, so I will introduce Dr. Wabe Zhang. He's a world leader in different areas of...
Hold on one second.
Okay.
I'm not sure you're live yet.
Okay.
All right, you're good.
Okay. So I'll introduce Dr. Wabe Zhang. He's a world leader in different areas of tomographic imaging, microimaging, including diffuse optical, photoacoustic, fluorescence molecular, thermoacoustic, and he applies these techniques. When I mentioned theranostic before, that's who I was thinking of. And he applies these techniques to cardiac systems, neural systems. He has a psychiatric project looking at effects of drugs on the brain, and also is funded for applying these techniques to diagnose and treat different types of cancers. He teaches 2 rigorous graduate level courses, including medical imaging and then advanced math for biomedical engineers. Next slide.
Am I live?
You are live. Dr. Laurie Heller is up next.
Okay. I'm Dr. Laurie Heller. I'm the first of kind of a team that works on drug and gene molecular delivery. We more specifically work with tightly controlled electrical pulses known as electroporation, and I'll let the other 2 researchers talk more about that. I'm more on the medical side. I work on therapeutic development. I test efficacy. I look at protein and gene expression and different mechanisms behind the therapy, and also behind the off-target effects associated with any therapy, including gene therapies. And I guess that's about it. Thank you.
Okay, next up is Dr. Richard Heller.
Good afternoon. So I'm part of the team that focusing on drug and gene delivery. And as Laurie mentioned, we use electric fields in order to be able to enhance delivery of these molecules. So my lab, a major focus is looking at ways to better treat cancer. And we're using a gene-based approach. Part of that is to develop safer and more efficient ways to do immunotherapy, as well as looking at various different DNA vaccines, both for cancer and for infectious diseases. And then also another area that we're looking at and funded in is developing these delivery approaches, both with the respect to instrumentation as well as protocols. And all of this is sort of geared towards being able to translate this to clinical use and eventually to FDA approval. Thanks.
Very good. Next up is Dr. Jaroszewski.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. So I'm Mark Jaroszewski, and as you can see from the slide, I teach a graduate biomedical engineering class in instrumentation as it relates to biomedical engineering, and a molecular and cellular engineering class. I joined the department in August 2020, so I am, I guess, the newest member of the department, even though I've collaborated with many of these faculty members over quite a long time. And especially have a long-standing collaboration with the 2 professors who described their research prior to me. So I too work in the drug and gene delivery field. and use pulsed electric fields or DC electric pulses, plasmas, but by plasmas I mean the fourth state of matter plasma, and other sorts of physical forcing functions to basically disrupt cell membranes in order to get DNA and other molecules such as drugs from the outside of the cell to the inside of the cell. And all this work has been focused over the years on in vivo, meaning not cells in a dish, but actually performing this in a live animal. And we have had clinical trials going on as well, because that mimics what might happen when you translate this into the clinic, which Dr. Heller mentioned. So I probably focus a bit more on the instrumentation side. You need a device to apply the forcing function, the plasma, the electric fields, or sometimes ultrasound we've worked with in the past is another physical form of energy to disrupt cell membranes. So it takes a lot of different applicators, electrode sets, and things like that have to be produced, tested, developed, and then you actually have to deliver the molecules with them and assess the results. And so this has required generally a few graduate students at a time. We've involved undergraduates over the years, and the whole end again is to translate these sorts of things to ultimately to treatments that can affect or improve cancer treatment and vaccination and a few other types of general types of therapies. Thank you.
Very good. Next slide. Okay, so you've met most of our primary faculty who are the core of our BME programs, but we also have, because BME is so multidisciplinary, we also have many faculty who participate either by teaching at graduate or undergrad levels, including offering courses in the pharmacy school, the medical school, as well as arts and sciences, physics, for example. So these faculty not only teach chemical engineering department as well, electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, but they also supervise BME graduate students, either master's thesis or PhD dissertation. So they have, for the most part, funding, and depending on where they are in their grants, are often looking for BME graduate students. And some of them are at Moffitt Cancer Center as well. Okay, next slide. So now Dr. Ohanes will take over.
Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about our extracurricular opportunities for students. So these include several different student organizations that are very active on campus. So the two that are most related to biomedical engineering are the Biomedical Engineering Society, as well as the Engineering Medical Society. There's also a graduate student union on campus. And then some other organizations that tend to have a lot of events, resources, and things like that for students include the American Association of University Women, the National Society of Black Engineers, the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers, and the Society of Women in Engineering. Outside the classroom, we also have the College of Engineering Research Day and the USF Health Research Day. And we have in the past year started a medical engineering department seminar series during the fall and spring semesters. So the seminar course is actually a requirement for our PhD students, but it is open to anyone in the university. So we would invite, of course, our master's students and any other students within the College of Engineering to attend and participate in that seminar series. As far as research and internships, we do have a variety of options as well. So for research, of course, master's students do have the option to pursue a master's thesis, and our PhD students, of course, will be working on your dissertations. We have created a new course taught by Dr. Laurie Heller, BME 5721, which is the Research and Innovation Principles and Practice. As far as internship opportunities, we have internship opportunities, paid internship opportunities with industry partners across the Tampa Bay area. Some of the companies that our students have recently interned with include Oxygen, ConMed, Jabil, Nuex, Oscor, and more. Career Services on campus does offer a lot of preparation for students. They have a career readiness badging system where you can complete a series of training modules to help prepare for the next steps in your career. They also provide interview and resume preparation. Within the department, Dr. Frisina is happy to help students by performing a mock interview for medical school or graduate school applicants. And we have held workshops within our department to help students prepare for these kind of interviews as well. And students are able to enroll in BME 6944, our internship course, in fall, spring, or summer. So whatever term you end up getting an internship for, you can register for credit hours during that term. And next will be Dr. Pisaglia with our graduate curriculum overview. Dr. Pisaglia, you're muted.
Am I live? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Perfect. So the graduate program coordinator is also the chair, Dr. Frisina, who you've been hearing about at the beginning of the presentation here, and the scheduler is Clara, to assist with setting up your graduate coursework. Students would work with their graduate advisor if they're a master's student. If they're a Ph.D. student, they would be working with their major professor in whose lab they're working in, along with the graduate advisor to develop a plan of study for their coursework. The department offers 3 types of degrees, a master's with a thesis and a master's without a thesis, or a non-thesis master's, and then the Ph.D. And the differences between those two are illustrated in this slide. In the case of the non-thesis master's degree, the student would go and just take coursework. With the thesis option, students would take, in addition to coursework, after they complete that coursework typically, they would conduct a research. And this research can be done either voluntarily or in an hourly paid manner, depending on the lab in which they are working in and the needs of that individual researcher. And then in the case of the PhD students, they would do, in addition to coursework and research, they may also do a TA or a teaching assistantship where they would help out instructors teach undergraduate courses. In the case of PhD students, they're all supported by a stipend, which is essentially another word for an annual salary, and a tuition waiver that would cover all their tuition needs for their coursework. Next slide, please. So the master's program in biomedical engineering, both for the non-thesis and thesis options, has a core requirement of 6 credit hours, and that core is these 2 courses listed here. A basic medical anatomy course taught through the medical school, and a research and innovation principles and practice course that we just developed for the MS and PhD programs. This new course has city modules for completing the responsible conduct and research that all students would need to do to work in research labs, as well as a Shark Tank for those students more interested in an industry track, and a NH-style graduate proposal component for those pursuing a more research track. In addition to this core class requirement that all students have to take, there is a 1 class life science requirement, which there's a few options, 3 options for students to choose from. A 6 credit mathematics requirement with various options for students to choose from. And then students would take 5 classes or 15 credits in total from a selection of BME electives offered by our department, as well as departments in the College of Engineering, as well as the College of Medicine. After completing the 30 hours of coursework, the non-thesis student would then do a comprehensive exam, which is in the form of a report that they would do. That's typically at about the 1 year to 1.5 year point. And then those pursuing a thesis would conduct research in the lab and graduate roughly a year and a half later to do that extra thesis work. Some notable points about our master's program is that we do offer a concentration in pharmacy currently, and we're looking to add concentrations in the core areas of bioinstrumentation, molecular medicine, and so forth mentioned earlier in the future. We do have coursework that's offered both in the College of Engineering as well as medicine, so you'll be sharing classwork with students in both programs in some cases, for some courses. As Clara mentioned in the earlier slides, there are internship opportunities available for students, as well as ample electives that are provided to give students the professional flexibility to tailor their education to whatever their research interests or career interests are. Next slide, please. The PhD program has the core requirements similar to the master's program. It is to say it has the same 6 required core courses. Students would choose 1 life science elective and 2 math electives from the same list, as well as the 15 BME electives. So in addition to the 30 core credit hours that would be similar to the master's program, they would take an additional 30 credit hours worth of either additional coursework or directed research. Most students would take that. Oh, can we go back, please? Most students would be taking that additional 30 credit hours in the form of directed research in the lab in which they're working in, but as I'll talk about when we get to notable highlights, they can also take additional coursework if they would like. After completing all that coursework, then they would do what is called a prospectus exam, which is where they would present what they propose to do for their PhD thesis. If they pass that prospectus exam, they would then move on to the matriculation phase, where they would conduct their dissertation research, and for which they accumulate 30 credit hours. And after completing that, they would do their final dissertation defense. And the graduation time for that dissertation defense for our program is on the order of 4 to 5 years. Some notable highlights for our program as one compares across programs in the country. I would note that there's no qualifying exams that we have. The prospectus serves as our qualifying exam. Other programs you might find have a math exam and various other types of exams. So ours is the prospectus exam. Another aspect of our program is that we have a flexible curriculum timeline. So students can complete their coursework as needed. There's no, come in, spend your whole first year taking courses and then joining a lab. We have students, most students will take sort of a 50-50 course load, where they're from their arrival, they'll be doing half the normal course load, and the other half they'd be taking as directed research, working in a lab. And that's because we use a direct sponsorship model, where students would be working directly from day one in the lab of their interest. We don't require a rotation system where students in that first year would be trying out different labs. That is an option for students who are high achieving and have scholarships and are interested in that rotation system. It can certainly be constructive for such students, but the vast majority of students will come and work directly in the lab, and that lab will be, providing the stipend that would be supporting them to do the research, as well as the stipend to pay for their tuition waivers. Next slide, please. Thank you. Oop. So I'll turn now back over to Clara.
Hi, everybody. So we just wanted to share, there are so many wonderful things about living in the Tampa Bay area. Our campus, the USF, the main campus in Tampa, is definitely modern and sprawling. New buildings are going up all the time. Of course, we have fabulous weather living in Florida. We do have the #1 beaches in the US in the Tampa Bay area. Clearwater and St. Pete beaches are about a 45-minute drive away. Busch Gardens and Adventure Island are literally down the street from the university. So if you love roller coasters or water parks, those are definitely an option. Of course, in Tampa, there are fun events like Gasparilla, the historic Ybor City. There's also a Riverwalk waterfront park downtown and Channelside. So these are all definitely areas that are developing, lots of great restaurants and things to see. There's the Port of Tampa here locally, where cruise ships, once, of course, that's a safe time to go cruising again. Deep sea fishing, water sports, sailing, all of that kind of stuff can happen on the waterfront here in Tampa. There are lots of interactive museums in the area. So there's the Dali Museum down in St. Petersburg, the James Museum, the Edison House, and the Tampa Museum of Art, among others. We also have lots of centers for performing arts, including the Strauss Center and the Mahaffey Theater. Again, restaurants, microbreweries, food trucks, outdoor dining, pretty much all year long in the Tampa area, which is really nice, especially during COVID when it's not so safe to be eating inside a restaurant, but being able to eat out on a patio can definitely be a little bit safer. And of course, we have several championship professional sports teams, which is always exciting to live in an area whose sports teams are doing quite well. So in addition to the academic opportunities in the department, it is a great place to live as well. Other than Tampa Bay highlights, I'm going to pop up here some ways to connect with us. So we are on Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So please check us out there. And I want to thank everyone for attending. So I'm going to pop a link down into the Q&A box. So anyone who would like to join our breakout session, it will be a traditional Teams meeting, which means that you would be able to turn on your mic and your camera, and we'd be able to see you and hear you. Otherwise, if you're more comfortable asking questions in the Q&A, the live event Q&A will stay going even after we end the actual live event. So feel free to pop questions in there as well. But we hope that you will hop over to the breakout session. Does anyone have anything to add at the end?
No,
Sure.
that's good. Go ahead.
I do have one more thing to add. This is more for, I guess, the PhD students in terms of the process. So students would be applying, and that material would be collected, and the grad curriculum would or grad admissions committee would review that material. Same will be true for the masters as well. But one additional step for the PhD students is that they would then be contacted by various faculty looking for students and arranging that sort of research marriage, if you will, so that they can then get sponsorship for a lab that they would work in. That process will continue through February, March time period, by which hopefully April everybody will have lined up the lab appointments, and you'd be sort of joining that lab and signing off on that.
Very good. So, as Dr. Haney's mentioned, we're going to have a regular Teams meeting, and that link will either appear
in the Q&A box.
Q&A box. Okay, so we're going to leave this live event and go to a traditional Teams meeting where you can ask questions in person, or also we'll monitor the Q&A box as well.
So we leave and go to that too, correct?
Yes.
All right, so I'll see everybody there.